In 1938, a character created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster first appeared in Action Comics #1. This character, later famous all over the world, had an amazing origin story. He had been found as a baby in a crash-landed rocket ship by Kansas farmers Clark and Martha Kent, who adopted him and pretended that he was their son. The child, Kal-El, whom you know better by his adult alter ego of Superman, was no ordinary child. He had been orphaned when his home planet, Krypton, exploded, the child having been saved from certain death by his father, Jor-El, who only had time to create a vessel for his son before their planet's destruction. The incredible origin of Kal-El is important to the story, of course, because of the amazing abilities that Superman will later use to help those in distress and defeat villains. The origin story of a great man fascinates people. Both Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar claimed to be descended of a god to add weight to their rule over the people. Siegel and Shuster weren't inspired by Alexander or Julius when they created Superman's origin story. Rather, a different, mysterious birth of a child with an adopted father who would later wield miraculous power must have helped inspire them, for they clearly created Superman to be a Christ figure, in imitation of the original Superman, the very Son of God born in a little village called Bethlehem, born to set his people free. Text of Micah, the prophet Micah from the Old Testament, chapter 5, verse 2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will rule over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. God chose to send his Son to redeem humanity, and he chose to do so through the incarnation, with Jesus taking on humanity in addition to his deity. God also chose how Jesus would enter the world. The prophet Micah predicted that the Messiah would be born not in Jerusalem, but in a small village about 5 miles south of Jerusalem called Bethlehem. The rich and powerful of the world were born in palaces to great anticipation and much fanfare. But when a queen gave birth to her firstborn son, whole kingdoms rejoiced. But the one sent by God to save his people would not be born in a palace, not even in the capital city, but as it turned out, in a cattle stall with a manger for a crib. The chosen one of God will enter the world in humble circumstance, a fitting entry for the work of a servant that lay ahead of him. We love a good rags to riches story about the little guy triumphing over long odds. While the Messiah's birth will indeed be in humble circumstances, his lineage will not be. The prophet says, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel. Bethlehem is the hometown of Israel's most famous king, the one-time shepherd boy who defeated the giant Goliath with a sling. Of course, that's David. The descendants of David have the right to claim his throne, but it had been vacant for nearly 600 years. In all that time, the people of Israel have endured foreign rulers, with only a brief respite of self-rule after the Maccabean revolt, before the domination of Rome began. Micah is predicting a king from David's line by declaring that his birthplace will be Bethlehem. It's a prophecy, then, of hope. A hope that must have felt faint indeed to the Jewish people after nearly 6 centuries of waiting. How will any king, even one descended from the great David, rescue a people living under the thumb of mighty Rome? The last phrase is the key. It says, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. The words, spoken and later written by the prophet, were probably beyond his own understanding. How could a child to be born in the future have his beginning in the distant past? And yet these are the words that the Spirit of God gave to Micah, a mystery to be pondered during the long wait for their fulfillment. Yet God had this planned out before the world was even created, before humanity was formed by the very hand of God. God intended to send his Son, eternal God and co-creator of the universe, to take upon himself human likeness and mortality, to enter into time and space, and to become one of us. Isaiah prophesied that the promised one would be called Emmanuel, which in Hebrew means God with us. In the case of Jesus, that would literally be true. God would indeed be with us, for he would be one of us. And so the child born centuries after Micah's prophecy would technically be a newborn, but at the same time be older than all of creation. As Mary wrapped her son and placed him in the manger, she was holding in her arms the very Son of God, who existed before time, for he created it. It's an amazing mystery, a marvel that we celebrate each Christmas. God had in the past called men and women to lead his people and empowered them with the Holy Spirit to work miracles and wonders. But the task set before the Messiah, to save people from their sins, could not be carried out by any mere man, no matter how devoted to God he might be. To save us, God sent his one and only Son, the heir of King David, born humbly in Bethlehem, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times.